So I really enjoyed reading all of your comments on the readings for the first week. I'm excited that we seem to have a really thoughtful and engaged class this term, so I'm looking forward to hearing more what you have to say about everything else that we read. I noticed one thing as I was reading through your comments is that first, a lot of you seem to agree with this idea that it's going to be really difficult, if not impossible, to come up with an essence of what it is to be human. That is, some characterization of the features that are both necessary and sufficient to be human. It seems like, well, for every, sort of essence you can think of, you can imagine some sort of an exception, some sort of human that wouldn't fall under those conditions. So I noticed that you were kind of sympathetic to Mashari's idea that, you're probably not going to find an essence of what it is to be human. And yet a lot of you also seem to think that this swamp creature that I described would not be a human, even though it was physically identical to me. So if you recall, the problem I posed to you is, well, imagine that a bolt of lightning zaps down into a swamp and just as a freak accident rearranges all the molecules so that those molecules are put together just the way all of these molecules are put together to form my body, and imagine that takes place. Would that physical duplicate of me be a human? Put aside the question of whether it would be me, at least for the time being, but would it be a human? And a lot of you said no, it wouldn't be a human. And the reason a lot of you said that is that you thought, well, there's more to being a human than just merely the physical configuration of, all the molecules in my hands and my hair and my brain and what have you. So you seem to think that there's some non-physical bit that makes just a mere configuration of matter like this thing a human. And so what I want to do this first week is to start exploring that idea, this idea that there's some non-physical bit, what some people sometimes call a soul, that humans have, and that might actually go into making the difference between something being a human versus something just being something that looks and talks and acts like a human but is actually not a human. So notice this idea, there's this non-physical soul that individual humans have. That's what Steven Pinker, in the reading from last week, calls this myth of the ghost in the machine. There's somehow this non-physical ghostly presence that is inhabiting what's otherwise like a meat machine. I've got all these physical bits made out of physical molecules that send electrical chemical signals that move my limbs and get it to put food in my mouth, which fuels the energy that requires to move it. I've got this meat machine, but then there's this additional idea that, maybe there's some ghost, some non-physical bit, a soul, or something like that inhabits this meat machine. A lot of you seem to think, yeah, it seems like that's the case. And so what I want to do this week is look at some reasons for thinking that is indeed the case, and some reasons for thinking that that couldn't possibly be the case. And we'll look forward to hearing what you think after you hear the reasons for both of those claims. So the first thing that I gave you to read is a couple of little essays by the philosopher Rene Descartes, and he gives some reasons for thinking that yes, there is something non-physical that each of us has that characterizes us as humans. So what we'll take a look at in the next video is just exactly what his reasons are for thinking that we have such a soul like that. So I'll see you back here, talk about Descartes.